It all started 2 years ago on Autism Pride Day, June 18th, 2024. The previous weeks, I went in for an assessment for autism, and that was the day my doctor wrote me this letter.
Okay.
All right, I have in my hand an envelope. I feel like I'm Karnak, but I'm not. About a week ago, I went in for an assessment for autism, and this is the results that they sent to me. So we're going to open the envelope and find out what they said. There we go. There's the opening. Drum roll would be nicer. All right, here we go. It says, from the doctor, the date on the 18th, you were first seen on 5/28/2024 for psychological assessment to investigate any psychological difficulties, including autism spectrum disorder. We discussed a variety of topics, including social interactions, behavior, and irritability, stimming, worries, fears, attention, concentration, and so on. Based on everything we discussed, behavior during our meetings, and outcomes of the assessment measures, a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder and adjustment disorder with mixed anxiety and depression mood was indicated. And then they go on to give me some recommendations here. So we have it. It's official. I have been diagnosed with autism. Hey, Define Yourselfers. I am the Confident Autistic, but you can call me Chris. On the channel, I create videos and more that will help you better understand autism, connect you with resources that can help you through your autistic journey, and I share my life as a late diagnosed autistic adult. Now, this is the type of content you are looking for. You found the right place, and make sure you don't miss anything from me. Please click on the subscribe button. And when you do, click that bell so you will get notified when I post new videos and when I go live. Now, earlier this week, and the links in the video, and you'll see a QR code on the screen, I did a video that talked about the grief we experience after we self-identify or receive our late diagnosis of autism. And earlier this week, I did a live where I shared all the things I learned in my first 2 years as an autistic adult. A link to that is also in the video description, as well as the QR code is on the screen that you can scan right now and go to that video. But today, we're going to talk about the actual grief and the gratitude I've experienced since my diagnosis. So let's dive into this by starting off by talking about the grief. One of the things I grieve with the friendships that I destroyed. I'll take ownership for it. Many of them I destroyed by my behavior, my strange behavior, which includes being defiant, being difficult, not knowing how to be a friend, not understanding friendships, okay? So I do grieve those friendships that I lost, and some hurt more than others. One in particular, and I'm not 100% sure this one was destroyed by my autism to some extent, maybe a little, and I'll explain why. I had a very cherished friend I knew since high school, and she and I had been in touch with each other for over 32 years. 30 since high school ended, since I left high school. And there was a post that was up on social media, and her children worked in the food industry, meaning like restaurants. And there's a post up there that said, if you cannot afford to tip 20%, don't come out and eat. And I took a little offense to that, okay? Now, first of all, let me just say, I agree with Dick Solomon on the on Third Rock from the Sun. Why am I paying him to do the job he's getting paid for? Okay, but I've gotten better about tipping. And my wife would tell me, when you tip, that's to encourage good service the next time you are here. And I thought, when I travel, I don't have to tip because I won't be back in this area. But she did break me of some of those bad habits, and I do tip. Okay. And I tip pretty generously now. Um, in most cases, the one incident I got to tell you about, I went in this cookie shop. Okay, Crumble. They make really good cookies. They're pricey. And they are really pricey, but they are good. So I went in there and I ordered my cookie. I wanted a sugar cookie, right? And it's gonna be like one. It was kind of big sugar cookie, and they told me it'd be about $5. And I said, okay, that's fine. I didn't really want to pay five, but I'm not gonna make a scene. And then they asked me, would you like to tip the man who made the cookie? And I thought, all you did was walk. Well, tip to him and the cashier. We'd like a tip for the cookie. And I thought, all you did was walk 3 steps over there, picked up the cookie, and brought it to the counter and handed it to me. I don't think there's a tip needed for that. How about tipping me for actually coming into your store and getting out of my car? But anyway, I'm off topic here. I do that occasionally. I And that most bothered me because one, I believe a tip should be earned and never expected. And I've seen many servers who think I should be I deserve 20% because I'm me. And that's wrong. Okay. And there's probably going to be a discussion in this in the comments. That's fine. Let me know what your thoughts on tipping. But you know, and then I had the analogy that I'll share in a moment. But one of the reasons I took offense to this is when I was younger and starting out, because I'm visually impaired, legally blind, I was on SSI, social supplementary security income, and that's very low income. Okay, very low. And when you're on that kind of income, you cannot afford to tip. Okay, you really cannot often afford to tip. Okay, and you did not go out and eat much. So when you did tip, but they weren't the biggest tips because you really couldn't afford it. And my analogy I used is somebody in the 70s, and they spent every dime they had to fight. And this is before I even knew my wife had cancer, to fight and overcome and defeat cancer and recover from cancer. And they wanted to go out and celebrate, and they didn't have a spare dime to tip. That's fine with me. You know, if you can tip, that's great. If you can't tip big, don't go out that often, probably, but the tip should be based upon service. Well, I made those kind of comments on on the post, and that I guess offended her, upset her, and she unfriended me, and we never talked again. And I feel that maybe my autism has something to do with it because I sometimes blurt out things that are not socially acceptable because I I struggle with, I'll be honest with you, I struggle with why can't I say everything on my mind? And why do I have to pick and choose to tell people or pick and choose what I want to say to keep friendships? Because to me, that's not being authentic. I you know, that's just who me I am. If something comes in my mind and I want to say it, I'll say it. And my wife has helped me learn over the years. Not everything enters my mind needs to come out of my mouth, but I still don't understand why I can't say what I'm thinking because I feel like we're being fake to one another. Do you have that feeling? I would love to know if I'm the only guy, only autistic person that feels like they're being fake when they're not saying something because it's socially acceptable not to say anything at the moment, even though you want to say something. I also grieve the relationships that could have been. I probably could have had more friends in my life if I understood friendships and knew how to make friendships. And I grieve those. I grieve friendships that I missed out on. I don't know what they are or who they would be with, but I do grieve that. What about you? And I also grieve some of the some of the disciplinary issues I got into during school, during my academic career, that more than likely will cause, in part, if not fully, by my autism, including getting expelled from college. Okay, I was expelled from college from 2 colleges. I don't call it expulsion, and I was expelled from high school. Again, I don't call that expulsion, and I was expelled from my first elementary school. Again, those are not expulsions. I frame it this way: I was invited to seek education elsewhere. So it's a nicer way of putting it. Okay. I also grieve The fact that it took so long for me to get a diagnosis. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that later. But yeah, I do grieve that. All those years that I went through life, struggling, fighting, clawing my way through, trying to figure out this thing called life that seems so easy for everyone else. I grieve those lost years. I grieve that deeply. I also grieve the words and actions of my parents as I grew up. Now, my parents are really are good people. I'm not going to say really, but they are good people. They have their faults, but everyone does. And some of the things my parents did, now, mind you, they did not know I was on the spectrum, really hurt. And they still sting today. Okay. In particular, I shared this the other night on the live stream, which is a link to in the video description. My dad would call me a hermit because I preferred to be alone, and that hurt. I did not know that I liked being alone because that was less stressful for me because of my autism. But I do grieve how my dad's words hurt me. I also grieve the failed and embarrassing medical procedures I've experienced in my life. Oh, I am 60 years old. I'm going to be honest, I'm 60, okay, the big 60. But you get me into certain medical procedures, I become a 3-year-old. Okay, I get that scared of medical procedures, which is not great for a person who's had several cardiac procedures, heart surgeries, had cataracts removed, and some other surgery throughout his life. I I had a catheter in after one surgery, and to get the catheter out, it took 10, this is not an exaggeration, 10 nurses, many male nurses, to hold me down. I was 16 at the time, hold me down to get that catheter out because I was fighting it because I did not want the pain. I don't like pain. I have a very low tolerance to pain, which I understand some of us in the spectrum have that problem. And there was one time I was so scared of surgery. I don't vividly remember this myself, but oh, my mom reminds me of it all the time. Thank you, Mom. I got up off the operating table and ran down the hallway naked. So I am horrible with medical procedures, and I grieve all those failed and embarrassing moments. And I still act out when it comes to medical procedures. And it's embarrassing to me, and I grieve that. I also grieve jobs that I lost. Practically every job that I had in my life, I lost. There's only two jobs I can think of. Three. Three jobs that I can think of that it was an amicable parting. One, I was teaching an eBay course in a college in California, and then we decided to move to Missouri, so that was amicable. I mean, I didn't get fired for that one. I also did a great job of volunteering. It's not really a paid job, but it's volunteering. I consider that work. Being a lunch buddy through the Big Brothers Big Sisters program locally. And that ended when my lunch buddy graduated from high school, and he and I are still friends today, and we get together probably about once a month. And I enjoy seeing him. And then there was the volunteering in the intensive care unit here at our local hospital. I did that for a little over 5 years. And it's been 9 years since I left, and they still want me to come back. And the reason I left is my father passed away in that hospital, and it just became a little bit difficult for me to work there. Now that my wife actually passed away in the unit I used to volunteer in, I'm sure that would be difficult for me to come back there. But I do grieve the jobs that I lost. I lost jobs working at colleges and computer labs. I've lost jobs, radio gigs and all. And sometimes it was just the nature of the industry, and sometimes it was because I did something stupid at work. Okay, I did. You know, but I do grieve that, and I know some of the job losses may have been because of something autism related for me. And I also grieve not living the life that I dreamed of when I was younger. When I was younger, starting in second grade, I mentioned this the other night in the live. I wanted to work in morning radio because I wanted to help people get off a good start to the day. Okay, wanted to work in morning radio real badly. That never really came to fruition for me. I did a little bit in college, a college morning show I was part of, and then I hosted. And then I did some work on a couple of local morning shows as part of the show, but not the host of it. But my radio career never went anywhere. I had a lot of other issues going on in my life as I became a young adult, struggling with undiagnosed autism. And in retrospect, I'm glad it didn't. Radio is not what it used to be in the 1980s. It's almost all commercials. Well, maybe not all, but a good majority of commercials. One time I timed this. There was a 10-minute commercial break in a morning show. And I went, this is ridiculous. Who's going to want, now with MP3 players and, all this stuff, who's going to listen to radio? And now most of the stuff is voice track, where the DJ comes in, he sits down in front of a computer for about 2 hours, records everything for all 5 shows for the week, and they put it into computer files. He's not even there when you hear him. And also, I'm glad I did not wind up working in radio. But yeah, I do grieve the loss of the life that I dreamed of as a kid. I dreamt of working in morning radio, dreamt of working in morning radio in St. Louis. That's my hometown. Living in a high-rise apartment in the city. None of that came true, but I do grieve that. And some of that not coming to fruition was because of my autism. Now, although I have grieved a lot of things, and I still grieve some of them, I can't get stuck in grieving. Okay, it's not good. It's not healthy. It's self-destruction behavior. At least in my opinion, it is. So we have to forgive, so we can move forward. We can't change the past. We can only hope to influence the future for the better. We can learn from the past, but we can't change it. So key thing to me has been forgiveness. I have forgiven that I was not diagnosed sooner in life. And that's one thing I do grieve, and I kind of mentioned that earlier. I wish I had been diagnosed when I was younger. I have a great nephew. He was diagnosed probably about the age of 3 or 4, and he's getting a lot of resources to help him, and I'm happy for him. Now, his diagnosis is different than mine. He needs a little bit more support needs than I do, at least at this time in his life compared to where I'm in my life, and all. But I forgive that I was not diagnosed sooner in life, because if I was, and this is something I think a lot of us go through, if I was diagnosed sooner in life, how would my life be different? And I do grieve over that too, but I do forgive that I was not diagnosed sooner in life, and I have a rationalization for that. When I was a kid, entering kindergarten in 1971, so I was like, 3 in the late 60s. We did not know anywhere near what we know today about autism. And that's why I was not diagnosed. So I have to base it upon what we knew back then, not what we know today, what we knew back then when I was a child, and understand that they did not know what they know to do, that they know today about autism, and forgive them for not knowing it back then, because what meets the criteria today was not part of the criteria back then. So I forgive them, the experts, the doctors, the teachers, everyone who missed it. And I'm just grateful that the younger generation is going to get the help that I could have used, and they're going to have a better life than me. I'm very happy about that. I also forgive that I did not get the right support when I was younger. Obviously, I did not get diagnosed, so I did not get the right support when I was a child. Okay, I didn't. They tried. I'll be honest with you. People tried to reach me, tried to help me. I did not fully understand what was going on inside of me, and I did not communicate well. Okay. And I'm also forgiving those who said things that were hurtful because they did not know. And I did not know I was autistic. Uh, I got called I'm going to say, I know it's offensive, but it's reality. And I think we're all grown-ups here. I got called retarded a lot as a kid. Okay. And that hurt. Because I was a little bit strange kid. I'll be honest. Compared to neurotypical standards, I was strange. And I forgive everyone who ever said anything mean to me or hurtful to me. And sometimes they did it because they knew to push my buttons to get me to act out. and I forgive every one of them. I never said that before, never said it publicly. So if you knew me when I was a kid and you said something mean to me and you're regretting it, it's cool, man. I forgive you. Okay. I sleep better that way. Now, why do I choose forgiveness? I choose forgiveness because I want to move forward. I don't want to get stuck in the what ifs and having hatred and all towards others. I don't have room for hatred in my life. I don't want to have hatred. I don't. So I choose forgiveness for my own peace of mind. I'm not forgiving people for them, although that's one of the benefits, but that's not the purpose I do it. I'm forgiving for me so I can move forward in my life and have more room for growth and not waste space in my mind with having hatred and anger and bitterness towards anyone. That's why I choose forgiveness. Now, there's some things I'm thankful about since my diagnosis and throughout my life. I'm thankful to all those who tried to help me and remain my friend when I was not at my best. I really do. Okay. There's been so many people, I cannot even name all of them, who really sat down and tried to get me to open up and share. And I just couldn't, I didn't know what was going on inside of me. I didn't know the words. I became very withdrawn. I became like a turtle. Okay. Back into my shell. But so many people did try, and I'm very grateful and thankful for them. And even though I probably frustrated the heck out of them, I am thankful for that. In fact, when I was in elementary school, third through sixth grade, I was in the principal's office practically every single day, sometimes twice. And I was a handful for my principal at Walker Elementary School, named Mr. French. And many years after I graduated from high school, I found him on the internet, and I sent him an apology letter for being such a handful to him, and thanking him for his patience with me and not kicking me out of school. And I did the same thing with a third grade teacher who I was really horrible with, to the point the last 2 weeks they put me into the classroom. I apologized to her as well. And I'm thankful these people did put up with me, even when I probably did not deserve it. And particularly, I am very thankful to my wife. Now, I was not a bad husband, and there was no physical abuse, no real verbal abuse. Obviously, in every marriage, you're going to say a few words you later on think, hey, I really wish I'd not said that. That was really cruel and hurtful. And I'll admit, I've done a little bit of that in my life. But I'm thankful for my wife who stuck beside me every time I acted out at a medical procedure. She was there for me, and she was my biggest fan, my biggest supporter, my biggest advocate. I am so indebted to her. She's no longer with us, but practically every day I thank God for putting her in my life. I'm also very thankful for a teacher named Mrs. Lyons. Like I mentioned in high school, it was actually in the 10th day of my freshman year. I was invited to seek education elsewhere. I went to a special education program for kids with behavior problems. And I had a wonderful teacher. Her name was Mrs. Langs. And she was just maybe an inch or two smaller than me, shorter than me, I should say. I could have taken her. Okay, I could have. I didn't, but I could have. But she put up with a room full of kids, 8 of us that had behavior issues. I mean, oh man, how she did it, I don't know. But the weird and cool thing about this was, all through my life when I misbehaved, I was always told by my parents uh, and others that I was such a bad kid. Mrs. Lyons, whenever any one of us misbehaved in that classroom, would always say this mantra, and she used it to de-escalate situations. I like you. I don't like your behavior. And that was the first time I learned my behavior, which probably was caused by my autism, did not define who I am. And that's where my business thing, define yourself, comes from. You you get to choose what defines you. Your behavior, the negative stuff does not have to define you. You can define who you want to be with the positive things you do with your life. I also am very thankful for Mrs. Mahoney. She's my resource room teacher in 11th and 12th grade. She's no longer with us, miss her. If it was not for her, I would not have graduated because she sat with me every single day from the start of the school day to the end of the day. I'll go to my class, get my assignment, go back into the resource room. She worked with me one-on-one for 2 years and got me through high school. And I learned a very important skill with her. She hated it when she was trying to teach me something and I would yawn. So I learned how to yawn without opening my mouth. So thank you for that, Mr. Mahoney. And I'm also very thankful for the people today who accept that I'm on the spectrum and respect me and support me. And that includes every one of you who is watching this video. I really do appreciate that. I appreciate everyone who subscribes to the channel. I say that all the time, but I sincerely mean it. I do appreciate you, each and every one of you. Now it's your turn. And today I have 3 different questions I'm going to ask you. And you can comment on any or all of these in the comment section beneath this video. What grief have you experienced since you started to self-identify as autistic or received your late diagnosis of autism? Have you forgiven those who missed your diagnosis earlier in your life? Have you forgiven those who wronged you because no one, including yourself, even knew you were on the spectrum? Share your response in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please like and share it with your community because that will help the channel grow. That's the easiest and least expensive way to help the channel grow is by doing the like button and the share button. New episodes of the Confident Autistic Journal drop every Friday, so be sure to subscribe to my channel and ring the bell to receive notifications of new videos and when I go live. In the meantime, please check out this video that is coming up on your screen. And until next time, I am the Confident Autistic reminding you to live confidently autistic.